if I was gonna ask you, thinking back to years in school, whether it's elementary, junior high, high school, whether it's college, grad school, or something else, trade school, what is the favorite class you've ever taken? Like in all your schooling you've had, what was your favorite class? Last night, we actually opened it up and I said to the people, hey, that's not a rhetorical question, and people started shouting things out. I'm not gonna do that with you guys because you guys are crazy, right? But it'll just get out of hand if I do that here. But yeah, it was interesting because some people were like, aerospace, chemistry, they're just like all these different, mathematicians, scientists, and I realized, like, oh man, that Saturday evening service, we had a lot of nerds there. I get the feeling as I look around here, it might be more like basket weaving, leatherwork, pottery. But all of us probably can look back and think back to different times where we took a class or had a teacher, a professor that really just engaged us in an incredible way. For me, when I look at that, out of all my schooling, there is one particular professor with a class that I took that really does stand out. When I was working on my master's degree, there was a theology class that I took. You have a list of different, theology classes you can take to fill your credits, and one of them just looked different to me. It looked like something that wouldn't be boring. And some of you are like, theology's not boring. No, theology's not boring, but professors are boring, okay? And this one looked different because it was just the writings of C.S. Lewis. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be a different tone. I grew up reading C.S. Lewis. I read the Chronicles of Narnia with my dad when I was young, and this will be interesting. But once I got the class, it took on a whole new life for me, a whole new life. Because we spent the first part of the class not studying the writings of C.S. Lewis, but studying C.S. Lewis. We learned about his upbringing, his family. We learned about him, growing up in England, about different things that happened in his life. Not only from things that he said himself, but from people around him. Like we looked at different diary entries and little interviews that had been written from like his chauffeur. And we got to know C.S. Lewis. And what ended up happening then is as we read the works of C.S. Lewis, there was a whole new depth that we began to see with it. Layers upon layers, because we understood his writings in a way that was very personal to him. And I'm saying that because when we are week after week digging into the Word of God, the more we get to know God, the more his Word takes on greater depth, and we begin to see layer upon layer upon layer that maybe we didn't see at just our first initial reading. We start to connect dots between books of the Bible and different ideas that maybe we didn't at first. And that's our whole goal as we are gathering as a church week after week and studying the Bible, just to get to know him more. And as we've been going through the book of Ruth, it's only 4 chapters long. The tendency for so many people is to grab Ruth, read through it in one setting, and you get a picture of what's being said here. But the closer you get to God, the more you understand the redemptive work of Jesus Christ, the more you start to see the depth and the layers that are in this book. We're going to be looking at Ruth chapter 4 today, but just in case you weren't here the last few weeks, or maybe you were serving in another part of the building, or maybe you were passed out in the aisle. I don't know. I just want to help recap really quick what we've learned so far. Ruth chapter 1. The word we use to explain that chapter is the word return. Ruth chapter 1 starts with a couple that are Jewish. They live in the little town of Bethlehem, the house of bread, as it's called. It's where the bread basket of Israel is. And during a time of drought, they do something that Jewish people were not supposed to do. They left their land that was given to them through their ancestors, allotted to them by God, and they went to the land of Moab. Moab was the enemies of Israel. Throughout the decades of Israel wandering through the desert, Moab tried to wipe them out multiple ways and multiple times. And when you looked at them as a people, their religion was attestable, because amongst the pantheon of gods that they worshiped there, child sacrifice was something that they practiced in Moab. But this couple, Elimelech and Naomi, because there was a drought in their land, left their property, left their people, and went to Moab with their 2 sons. While they were there, the 2 sons married, so you ended up with 3 couples, but over a 10-year period of time, a decade, all 3 men in the family died, leaving Naomi and 2 daughter-in-laws. Naomi hears that after 10 years, the drought is over in Israel, and that in her hometown of Bethlehem, there's a bountiful harvest that's going to take place. And so Naomi says, I am going to return back to my home. One of her daughters-in-law says, no, I will not return with you. I'm going to stay in Moab. But the other one, Ruth, looks at her mother-in-law and says, I am going with you no matter what. And it's a famous passage. You hear it in weddings all the time, although it's not a wedding passage. I will go where you go. I will sleep where you sleep. Your people will be my people, and your God is now my God. And in Hebrew, it literally says that Ruth glued herself to Naomi. She's like, I'm not leaving you. You're stuck with me. I'm right by your side until death do us part, right? And they go back, and when they get there, Naomi wants everybody to change her name. She doesn't want to be called Naomi anymore, which means like pleasant. She wants to be called Mara, which means bitter, right? What we learned in Ruth chapter 1 is that you can never run so far away from the things of God that his grace and mercy won't allow you to simply turn around and come back. You can return at any time. That's how incredible his grace and mercy is. Ruth chapter 2, providence is the word that we use to describe Ruth chapter 2. When they get to Israel, Ruth is there. Naomi is too old to go out in the fields and work. So Ruth decides, I'm going to go out while the harvest is taking place. And as the harvesters are going along, I am going to go behind them in the distance and glean. Whatever they drop on the ground, I'm going to pick up for us to live off of. And it says that she hopes she's able to find a man who owns land that will allow her to do that. And scripture says she just happens to come into the field of Boaz. What we learned about in that chapter was the providence of God, because it wasn't just happenstance that took place. God was maneuvering things behind the scenes, and Ruth ended up in the land of Boaz on his property. He takes note of her. Right when he sees her, he's like, whose woman is that, right? And he tells his men, you better not touch her. Don't you harm her. Don't you touch her. Don't you abuse her. He tells Ruth, it's not safe for you back there. Come up here with my servants. Take what we take. In fact, you can eat what we eat. And he even gives her more than what she should have gotten. She experiences safety, security. She, at one time, is the lowliest of servants, being brought up to be one of the highest station of type servants. And she is given abundance. When she goes home and tells Naomi where she got all this food, Naomi says, oh my goodness, that's Boaz. He is a redeemer. And that takes us in to chapter 3. Chapter 3. The main word for chapter 3 and chapter 4 is the word redeemer. You see it over and over again. In fact, per capita, the book of Ruth has the word redeemer in it more than any other book in the entire Bible. All right? It's really the main theme of this entire book. Boaz is a kinsman redeemer. And what was that? Let me explain quickly because it really affects what we're going to read today. When in Israel under Jewish law, a husband died and left the wife without children, written in the law was this provision that it was the responsibility of the oldest brother that was living to take her as a wife and give her children, and then the family name would continue. And if he wouldn't, then it was the next brother. And if he wouldn't, then it was the next brother. And if there weren't any brothers, then it was the oldest uncle, or the next oldest uncle, or the next oldest uncle. And the responsibility of that type of redeemer, a goel it's called, is this. They were able to buy family members out of slavery. They could redeem people out of slavery. They could redeem the property of family members. You know, in our culture today, more and more people are renting, more and more people are in townhouses, in apartments. There are some world leaders that say that's the ultimate goal is for all of us just to live in rented facilities and we will like it. That's not what, wow, why did I suddenly want to go on a rant about Independence Day? I'll stick to the topic at hand. But you look at it, that's not what God was doing with the people of Israel. He gave them land. He gave it to them. And it was special. And if they lost the land, they were either able to get it back in the year of Jubilee, or a kinsman redeemer could purchase the property back for them. The other thing is that a kinsman redeemer could give a child to a widow who was childless. So this incredible thing, Boaz is a kinsman redeemer. And in Ruth chapter 3, we see that she goes in to the threshing floor at night while Boaz is asleep. She cuddles up next to him. He wakes up in the middle of the night and is shocked and is like, who are you? Right? Like there's this woman like laying next to him when he wakes up. And she says, I'm Ruth, your servant. I want you to redeem me. And Boaz tells her, I will do it. But there's somebody in line before me. Basically, he has an older brother. And that is the person who has the first right of refusal, okay? And he says, I will go to him and try to work it out. If he wants to redeem you, okay. But Ruth, if he won't, I will make you my wife. And that's where we pick up the story. Ruth chapter 4, verse 1. Hopefully that was a little quick update on where we are, and the rest of this will make sense. If it doesn't make sense to you, here's just a good way to make it make sense. Go home, drink more coffee, watch it online, and then it'll make sense. But anyways, Ruth chapter 4, verse 1, this is what we read. Now Boaz had gone up to the gate and sat down there. And behold, look at the person next to you and say, behold. Say from your gut, behold. That's what it is in the Hebrew there. Behold, the Redeemer of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, turn aside, friend, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down, and he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, sit down here. And so they sat down. And then Boaz said to the Redeemer, Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. So I thought I would tell you of it and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not, tell me that I may know, for there is no one beside you to redeem it, and I come after you. And he said, I will redeem it. Then Boaz said, the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the dead, in order to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance. Then the Redeemer said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption yourself, for I cannot redeem it. Now, this was the custom in the former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. To confirm a transaction, the one drew off his sandal and gave it to the other. And this was the manner of attesting in Israel. So when the Redeemer said to Boaz, buy it for yourself, he drew off his sandal. Then Boaz said to the elders and all the people, you are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon. Also Ruth, the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have bought to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day. A little bit unusual when we look at this, transaction taking place. Boaz goes to the city gates, and that was the common place where people would do business. As people would enter into the gates, they would be stopped there, and there were different judgments that could take place. So that's what he does. He sits there, and there's the elders of the area of Bethlehem sitting there as well. And when this Redeemer comes in, he tells him, come and sit down. Now, one thing to note, up until this time in Ruth, everybody has a name. The previous book is the book of Judges. The last few chapters of Judges, nobody has names. You get to Ruth, suddenly everybody has a name except this one man. We have no clue who he is, other than that he has first right of refusal on being the Redeemer. Boaz sits down with him and says, hey, Naomi's selling this property. You have first right of refusal. Do you want to redeem this property and make it yours? Now remember, this is not 10 years previous when there's drought. This is 10 years later where they've just had a massive harvest. So this guy's like, oh, whoa, I have the opportunity to get all of that land too? I can expand my territory and I'm going to be able to harvest that this next year as well? You bet, right? He instantly is like, I'll redeem it. Absolutely. But then Boaz looks at him and says, what? When you redeem it, you will also acquire, you will be redeeming who? Not Ruth. Ruth the Moabite. Notice he slides that in there, right? Ruth the Moabite. And when this gentleman hears that, he's like, no, actually, I can't take it. I can't do that, right? Why? Again, the Moabites were people that the Israelites were enemies of. They were accursed. In fact, in the law, what it stated was if a man married a Moabite, they were not allowed to be in the worship of the Lord for 10 generations. 10 generations. This is one of those things where this man's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I want the land, but I don't want her. I want the property, the possession, but I don't want this person. I don't want this person. And in fact, he just doesn't want to be dishonored this way. You get this whole thing going on where they trade the property, and they do it in a very different way by taking off their shoe. Today, when we take possession of property, what do? Well, for us, every time we've done it, we go to a title company, and we sign a piece of paper, and we sign a piece of paper, and we sign a piece of paper, and we initial. We sign it, we initial, we sign it, initial, sign it, initial. And by then they're like, Mr. Davis, I can't read that anymore. I'm like, fine, sign it, initial. Until the point, and if you've done that, it's a huge stack of paper and your hand is quivering by the end because you've had to do it so much. How much simpler? They just take off their shoe and swap it, right? Can you imagine if that's what we did? I'd come home, and so far, every time we've done that, it's always been a lady that we've signed papers with. So I would come home with like a black stiletto or something. But it's one of those things that's like, okay, this is different. We read about that in Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 5 to 10. Let me read it for you. And this is what a kinsman redeemer could do. If brothers dwell together and one of them dies and has no son, the wife of the dead man shall not be married outside the family to a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go into her and take her as his wife and perform the duty of a husband to her. And the first son whom she bears shall succeed to the name of his dead brother, that his name may not be blotted out of Israel. And if the man does not wish to take his brother's wife, then his brother's wife shall go up to the gate to the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to perpetuate his brother's name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of a husband's brother to me. Then the elders of his city shall call him and speak to him, and if he persists, saying, I do not wish to take her, then his brother's wife shall go up to him in the presence of the elders, pull his sandal off his foot, and spit in his face. Okay? And she shall answer and say, so shall it be done to the man who does not build up his brother's house. And in the name of his house, it shall be called in Israel from that time on, quote, the house of him who had his sandal pulled off. Okay? So you look at this, and with this first right of refusal, the person had the ability to decline. It was legal, but it was also dishonorable, right? Someone would get to spit in your face for not doing the honorable thing, and from that time on, your last name would be changed. Like if that happened at our family, I would not be Pastor Davis anymore. I would be, that guy, that's our pastor. Pastor, the house of him who had his sandal pulled off, right? Like, wow, what a long last name. But it's just thing where it was dishonorable. But in this situation, this relative decided that dishonor instead of the dishonor of marrying a Moabite woman. But notice Boaz. He has no problems whatsoever. And Boaz is like, she's going to be my wife. I'm taking her. Remember who Boaz's mother was. Rahab the spy, who was not Jewish. She was a Gentile. But because of the way she acted in defense of the Jewish people, she was brought in to the house of Israel. And what was she before she became the spy Rahab? She was a prostitute. So Boaz is like, you know what? That was my mom. I will take Ruth. I don't care if this dishonors. She's going to be my bride. I will redeem her. Absolutely beautiful. We learn about Boaz there. The story goes on, and we learn in the next two passages, some stuff happens with Ruth now. Verse 11 and 12. Then all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, we are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman, Ruth, who is coming into your house, like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephrathah, and be renowned in Bethlehem. And may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring that the Lord will give you by this young woman. Isn't that awesome? This takes place, and in front of all the elders, Boaz is like, I'm taking her to be my bride. And all of the elders there, they actually bless it. They bless it. They pour out kindness and grace on this. And what do? They say, may you be like Jacob, Rachel, and Leah. May you be like Tamar and Judah. Now, I'm not going to go completely back into those stories. We just don't have time today. But note those. Both of those situations that were just talked about are in Genesis. And both of those were situations where marriages took place in a way that was considered not exactly good. Okay, not good. You look at the story of Jacob and Rachel and Leah, and there's trickery. He ends up marrying one sister. He thinks it's this sister, but he wakes up in the morning and it's that sister, and he's like, what? And so then he's like, I want that sister. He ends up with 2 wives because of it, and there's all this drama that takes place, and it looks at first like a horrible situation, but then God shows up on the scene. Jacob wrestles with the Lord, and afterwards, his whole life changes and he begins to follow God. And his name is changed then from Jacob to what? Israel. And they have 12 sons who become the 12 tribes. Then you have this whole thing with Tamar and Judah. And it is again a story of a kinsman redeemer, but one who does not do what he's supposed to do. Both of these are marriages that take place in ways that, according to the culture, is not right and dishonorable. And yet, in both cases, God brings about blessing upon blessing upon blessing. Absolutely amazing. Let's go ahead and finish out Ruth chapter 4, verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. The women said to Naomi, blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer. And may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him. Then Naomi took the child, laid him on her lap, and became his nurse. And the women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, a son has been born to Naomi. They named him Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse, Jesse the father of David. Now, these are the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Ram. Ram fathered Amminadab. Amminadab fathered Nahshon. Nahshon fathered Salmon. Salmon fathered Boaz. Boaz fathered Obed. Obed fathered Jesse. And Jesse fathered David. 2 questions in closing. Who is this story about? Question 1. Who's the story about? People look at this and they're like, well, the name of the book is Ruth. It's the story of Ruth. No. Who's at the beginning and at the end? Naomi. It's Naomi who was taken by her husband off to this land. It's Naomi who returns. God brings into Naomi's life Ruth and then also Boaz. But we look at the end of this. Did you notice it shifts? It's talking about Naomi. Why? Because God saw Naomi, his daughter, who had lost absolutely everything in her life. And when she was bitter and thought God was against her, what she ended up learning was God was for her all along. Life happened, but he was there working out plans and purposes. The providence of God. Question number 2. Who is the Redeemer? On the surface level, when we first read it, it looks as if Boaz is the Redeemer. And in a way, he is the Redeemer. And you can draw so many parallels between Boaz and the work of Jesus Christ on the cross. Boaz is a Redeemer. But the way this ends is so unusual. Did you catch this? Verses 14 and 15. Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer. May his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him. 2. Who's the Redeemer? The Lord. And did you catch it? The child. The child. That's what they just said to her. There's a Redeemer that the Lord has given you. And your daughter-in-law, Ruth, gave birth to him. And then the writer of Ruth makes it clear that from this child, the line goes down to who? David. David. Notice it doesn't say king, because they don't know that yet. They don't know that yet. But this is like a prophecy that they're giving, that this child that is born from Ruth is a redeemer to Naomi, and his name will be renowned all throughout Israel. But when we follow this line, it's actually not even King David, because that's why both Matthew and Luke start with this line going even from David all the way to Jesus Christ. David himself, he knew he wasn't the Redeemer. In his very own words, in Psalm 31, he says this, "In you, O Lord, I do take refuge. Let me never be put to shame. In your righteousness, deliver me. Incline your ear to me. Rescue me speedily. Be a rock of refuge for me, a strong fortress to save me. For you are my rock and my fortress, and for your name's sake, you lead me and guide me. You take me out of the net they have hidden for me, for you are my refuge. Into your hand I commit my spirit, for you have redeemed me. O Lord, faithful God." David knew he wasn't the Redeemer too. Who was it? The Lord. He says this again, Psalm 24, a psalm of David. "The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. For he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the rivers. Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord, and who shall stand in his holy place?" A lot of people would say it's David. But David's asking the question because he knows it's not me. He gives the qualifications of the one who's able to ascend the holy hill of God. He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not lift up his soul to what is false and does not swear deceitfully. He will receive blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek the face of the God of Jacob. He goes on to say, "Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in." Who is the King of glory? The Lord, strong and mighty. The Lord, mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O gates, and lift them up, O ancient doors. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. Why is this so important? Today, is he your Redeemer? Is he your King? Is he your Lord? Or is he a good teacher, a friend, someone you just want to get to know and learn how to be moral from. Why is this distinction important? Jesus one night had a supper with 12 friends. They were his disciples. They became his friends. He looked at them and said, "Tonight, one of you will betray me." Peter said, "Is it I, Lord?" And then, one after another, the next 10, all of them said, "Lord, is it I?" Then Judas said, "Rabbi, is it me?" Notice the difference. To 11, he was their Lord, their Redeemer, their King. To one, he was merely a rabbi, a good teacher.